today, but thank you all very much for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Sean O'Brien, president of QwickRate, and as always, I'm pleased to be joined by Steve Huntington. Steve, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us on for kind of a different format of coffee talk about QwickAnalytics. My name is Steve Huntington, the director of analytics here at QwickRate. I've been working my entire career with community banks all around the country and spent more than half of that time working with Sean now.
Great. Thank you, Steve. Again, I apologize. Still having some technical difficulties here, so hopefully we'll muddle through. So again, just a reminder, we will start off with a few polling questions today. Throughout the presentation, though, if you have questions, certainly submit those through the Q&A box or the chat feature. We will monitor those and either take those at an appropriate break or at the end of the conversation. So certainly don't hesitate to offer any questions. We are doing a few polling questions today. I recognize our audience today is split between individuals who are already QwickAnalytics subscribers. So thank you all very much. But we recognize there is a large portion of you who are not subscribers, just here to learn a little bit more about QwickAnalytics today. So as we do some of these polling questions, there are a few that are directed towards our existing participants. But for those of you who are new to us, don't mind those questions. You could just obviously skip past those. But we will go ahead and get a few going here. Really, the first one here, is again directed more towards our existing users. Which QwickAnalytics pages or analysis do you find the most helpful and utilize the most? So just a few different choices to go ahead and select on.
And then below those radio boxes is a little fill in the blank, so to speak, for any other ones we don't have on the list there. If there's any particular ones that you really like that you're using frequently, we'd like to hear about it.
Exactly. Thank you, Steve. So we'll just give this 30 seconds or so. Get us going this morning. No, unfortunately, there is not CPE being offered, excuse me, in this session. I apologize for that. Okay, I'll go ahead and end this one. And again, so the more popular pages, are the board reports, the BPRC Peer Watch Performance Matrix. But again, from our list here, CECL Solver. All pretty heavily used. So thank you for responding to that. Move to the next question. Just some new additions. Again, how helpful would the following analyses or services be to your institution? So liquidity analysis, stress testing, budgeting, interest rate sensitivity, long-term strategic planning, loss forecasting, board reporting, M&A analysis. Again, loan level analysis, loan review, and local deposit analysis and gathering. So again, if any of those are things that you're looking at or feel like there's technologies that might assist you, certainly welcome any comments on that as we continue to plan out where our next dives into technology will go. Another 15 seconds or so. Almost all those areas gathered interest. So again, thank you for your responses. And then finally, do you use third-party vendors for financial modeling in addition to QwickAnalytics? Just a simple yes or no question there. And then we'll we'll get started with the presentation. Okay, so 68% of you are, 32% are not. So again, thank you for your participation today. And we will, share some of the information provided in that. When we do, we will send out a link to today's recording along with a copy of the slides, likely on Monday afternoon, Tuesday morning. So again, we'll summarize some of those polling questions in that email. So I think at the heart of what QwickAnalytics really tries to do, and what we try to, help you do, both with the QwickAnalytics and IntelliCredit, is we feel like there's your time is incredibly valuable to us or to you, so we want to make sure we can optimize your time. And I think one of the ways that we do that is we just believe we are better at aggregating data so you can analyze data, right? That's really one of our founding premises here at QwickAnalytics and IntelliCredit. And so we want you to be able to see your data over time and be able to immediately compare it to peers without really having to do any data aggregation on your own. And so I think as we sit here today, we are constantly trying to best position you to be able to share information about your own bank, other banks, put together analyses that are hopefully helpful to your management team, to your board of directors, and do it in a very collaborative way, not only with us but with your team, because we do offer our users unlimited user access once an institution signs up. So again, part of our polling questions are today is we really we want to take those next steps in further adding functionality to QwickAnalytics, and so your feedback's certainly invaluable to us as we try to figure out how best to kind of continue to move forward with new product offerings and service offerings within QwickAnalytics. For those of you who are new to QwickAnalytics, right, we are really aggregating data from a number of different sources. Certainly initially the call reports, but we do try to grab additional data and put it all on one application for you. Some of the things we're going to talk about today, are some of the more just again continued enhancements to some of our tools. Touch on some of the pages that we certainly see our users asking about, utilizing tools that we think can improve or hopefully just improve your knowledge of what we have, and then not covered today just because we talk about it every month, are the CECL solvers, but again just now looking for even more financial applications or ways to help you with your data. So Steve's going to take the presentation from here and talk about some of the more recent enhancements that we made. Steve, any comments on this page before we get going?
No, this is just sort of a summary. We're going to talk a little bit about industry research and trends, which we're making a significant sort of interactive enhancement to those tools. We continue to work with the net interest margin analysis and make it more convenient and intuitive. We've had our sort of built-in data dictionary and auditing capability for a little while now, but I want to just remind everyone of how that works. We have some newer credit stress testing scenario options, which we'll go over for a couple minutes. And we kind of backed up our data. As you know, the further back in time you go, the more changes there are to call reports. And so going back to certain dates becomes more challenging to map call reports over time. But we made an effort earlier on this year to go ahead and go back pretty much to about 2001 or so with all of our financial data in all of our tools. And we've been making a big push towards adding financial data for credit unions as well, so that you'll be able to see summary pages for credit unions that you might be competing with, and also get that credit union data in addition to the bank and holding company data directly in our Excel add-in tool. Without further ado, let's dig into some of the more exciting stuff. So this is not new. This is our existing industry research page. For those of you who have used it in the past, it has been focused solely on credit metrics, where you can choose a loan category, choose a metric, whether it's past due, non-accrual, charge-off recovery, and map those credit metrics over time for your institution, for excuse me, for a peer group or a number of peer groups, and also overlay economic data. So it's been a very helpful tool for a lot of our users as they try to estimate losses moving forward for purposes of calculating their ACL, and as a sort of helping with qualitative factor adjustments in CECL and everything else. But so far, the industry research that we have has been limited in this interactive module, has been limited to credit research. If you wanted to get sort of a comprehensive industry research on our tool that's focused not on an individual bank, but really how the market is performing as a whole, we had our QCBI report. So Sean, if you'll let me, I'm going to go ahead and share my, yeah, I'll share my screen now.
Yeah, okay.
Let me know when that pops up.
We can see it.
Excellent. So this is our guinea pig for today, Camden National Bank up in Maine. We use them for a lot of our presentations here. So our existing, so sorry, I got to head back to the main page here. So here's our login page. Our existing industry research, which is focused on the credit research, is right here. And if you wanted to get sort of a comprehensive industry research outside of that, you use our QCBI performance trends report. For those of you who are familiar, this is the format of that report. It doesn't really offer any flexibility with dates and measures. You pretty much download this report, and it's kind of a state of the market, state of community banking in your state or in the US. And we have lots of different trends on different financial statistics over time, so that you can compare yourself to what's going on in the marketplace around you. But it's a very static kind of unformatted or unchangeable report. What we will be having now in the next couple of weeks, we'll be rolling out live with kind of a 2.0 version of our industry research. This page here, as I mentioned before, this is the credit analysis that already exists. What's going to be new is a number of additional tabs here with different ways to look at performance from an industry and peer perspective. So if I click on performance analysis here, it allows me to pull not just credit metrics, but any sort of metric that we work with in our database. I can type in, let's say, net interest margin, if I can spell. I start typing in margin, it'll show net interest margin and FTE. If I just choose our net interest margin, and I want to go ahead and add, let's say, I'll add a UBPR peer group. Let's say we'll go with UBPR peer group 7. Why not? And I want to add them. So I just went ahead and added the net interest margin. So there's a net interest margin for UBPR peer group 7 at the median or the 50th percentile. So if I'd like, I can go ahead and add another research group. I can add all the community banks in, let's say, Colorado, for example, and add them to the line. So now I have median margin over the last, 12 quarters or so for Colorado community banks and for UBPR peer group 7. If I want to go ahead and add a bank in there to compare it to, we'll stick with Camden again, if I can spell. Third time. There we go. And I'm going to add them in. So now we have them as a bar, and we have the two peer groups as lines. If I want to look at a different time period, I can go ahead and, let's say, I'll go back to the beginning of 2019. Every time you make any sort of change in the dates or the peer groups or anything else, it updates on the fly. So now we're going back quarterly to 2013, or sorry, to 2019. If I want to look at annual or full year dates instead of quarters, I can do that as well. And so now we're going back annual margins from 2013 to this past year. And let me go ahead and I'm going to reset the chart, start from scratch here again. And let's say, instead of typing in a metric, if I just want to look at metrics in different categories, I can sort of, I can scroll through all the available fields, but let's say I just want to look at non-interest expense to average assets. And I want to do it just for all the community banks in California. As I do that, well, there's a median, but now I want to look at say add a 75th percentile as well. So if you use a single peer group, I can add a second percentile. So I can kind of have a range of overhead expense to average assets for community banks in the state of California at the median and at the 75th percentile. And again, that's over whatever time periods I want and with whatever durations. If I want quarterly, discrete quarters, or year-to-date data, or full year data. And again, I can add a bank back in here. So I'll go ahead and add Camden back in here. And them alongside. And in addition to seeing those trends in the chart, if I hover over the chart, I can see the individual values for the bank in question. I can do the same thing with the peer group. And down here is a table which has all the same data points. So no matter how many periods I use, if I choose, let's say 60 quarters over 15 years, this table will have a little scroll box as well, and you'll be able to get all the data in addition to the visual chart. If I want to overlay an economic trend, I can do that as well. So let's say I want to overlay GDP growth and add that overlay. I'll do that in red. So there we go. So again, it updates dynamically on the fly. You can add multiple banks to the analysis. You can add one or multiple peer groups to the analysis. When you're choosing a peer group, I can choose. Let me just pick one again here. I can choose community bank or QCBI peer groups. Again, those are just all the community banks in a market at the state level, or at if I click on a state, I can just choose a specific MSA if I want to kind of zero in a little bit more. I can choose national peer groups. I can also choose UBPR or any of your custom peer groups. So any custom peer groups that our users have built using the platform also show up here. So pretty much complete flexibility in which peer group or peer groups we use. And the idea behind this is it's just a much more dynamic, visual, interactive way to pull these trends flexibly over time. Let's say, well, let me just pull one so I can do an export. I'll do that and I'll choose 70th percentile. So there we go. And I want to go ahead and export. And you can add and remove different series over time. I want to turn this to a PDF. There we go. So PDF shows the chart, shows the table with the data, and you'll be able to create PDFs with multiple pages in them as well as we finish developing it. So it's all exportable to a PDF environment as well as to a Excel environment. So if you want to pull this data and put it directly into Excel, you can do that as well. The chart will be an image in the Excel file, but all the data will be formatted in there as well. Sean, anything I missed on the industry research?
No, I think I think we're excited about it. I think one of the things that we've tried to do is provide multiple ways for you as a user to access information, right? Some of you, just the way we present the interactive pages, it's enough. Others may want to look, again, maybe from 10,000 feet and drill down. So I think what we've always tried to do is make the user experience as seamless and easy to consume as possible. And we really just felt like this, continuing to enhance the functionality of the industry research page, just really gives you an easy way to go in and get at all the data we have, in an interactive, immediate, response, and then just provide another tool for you to do that analysis and research. All right.
Yep. Okay. We'll go ahead and why don't we skip back to the presentation for just a minute, and then we're going to come right back to my screen again.
Got it. All right. So let me take this back here and pull this up. Okay. All right. So, Steve touched on, the industry research page enhancement. Steve, anything you want to cover on this slide before?
Oh, am I still sharing my screen?
You shouldn't be. You may have to stop yours to see mine.
I'm trying to. Oh, there we go. Okay, that's a little better. Yeah, so this is an example of the new page. Again, it's not live yet, but it should be in the next hopefully in the next week or two here. And so if we head to the next slide, we'll be also, in addition to simply the credit research that we've already had, the performance research, which just kind of opens it up to any sort of metric that you want to look at. We'll be adding additional tabs of different visualizations as well. For those of you who do like our QCBI PDF reports that we generate each quarter, you'll probably notice in the last couple of quarters we've added a new slide to that. This is sort of a performance matrix, but not a performance matrix based upon an individual bank's performance, but really just that market in general. So this is an example of just for the first quarter for all banks in the United States. We picked some sort of summary metrics, and we chart from the 10th percentile all the way up to the 90th percentile what those values are for the peer group, so you can get an idea of not just average or median trends, but where you might stack and rank on a percentile basis throughout the spectrum from bad to good, or from subjectively bad to subjectively good. So again, this is a visualization that's on our QCBI report as it is. It's going to be added to the industry trends interactive site as well, in addition to other visualizations over time. So just wanted to kind of display that for those of you who haven't seen it.
And just a reminder, it's available both at the state and national level. So.
Yes, at any geography that you wanna pull, whether it's national or state or pretty much any, it'll be buildable for any custom peer group actually that you want. This is our net interest margin comparison or decomposition analysis. It's something that we added to the site last year, and we've made a couple enhancements to. I'm not going to go through it in too much detail, all of it. I just want to kind of talk about the enhancement to it. So if you go ahead and go to the next slide for just a second, Sean, and then I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So the two highlighted columns are the new ones that we've added recently. We've always had the change in margin contribution when we added this page, but what we didn't supply initially was just the discrete margin contribution for each individual period. So we wanted this page to kind of flow a little bit better. We made sure we had the older periods on the left and the more recent periods on the right, just like we have on the chart down the bottom. It kind of flows from left to right, from older to newer, and added the individual period margin contribution. So let me go ahead and share my screen here for a second again. All right, and this is all on our live site.
Yep.
So that's not a problem. So if I head here, all the interactive financial pages here on the left-hand side currently have, I'll choose the rate volume analysis. And there we have it. So this is, let me change these periods here. I'm just going to do change in the first quarter, right? Change in or we're looking at the margin composition for the first quarter and how it's changed from the fourth quarter of last year to the first quarter of this year for our guinea pig bank of the day. As you can see here, we show, the interest income or expense, the average balance, and the resulting yield or cost, all the way down the line, ending with, interest or yield on earning assets. And on the bottom side are the costs or rates on interest-bearing liabilities, starting with deposits and then other non-deposit liabilities. You'll notice as I hover over any one of these values, it allows you to click on it and get the auditing tool. So for example, if I want interest income on 1 to 4 family loans, I can click on that. We get a little pop-up box. Let you know what the dictionary ID is in our database, where it's coming from on the call report. It's RIAD 4435. And sometimes a definition or a footnote about that particular line item or metric if it's helpful. But what we've added again is the individual margin contribution. So the idea here is that in addition to just looking at your yields on your various earning assets relative to each other, we want to get a feel for where is your margin really coming from? What's driving your, let me zoom in just a little bit. What's driving your overall margin in an individual time period and the change over time? So for example, in the fourth quarter of last year, their yield on earning assets was 4.66%. That came from a yield on loans of 5.25, securities of 254, and cash and equivalents of 424. But as far as what they contributed to the overall margin, obviously, as a typical community bank, the earning assets are heavily weighted towards higher earning assets like loans. And so you can see of the 4.66% yield on total earning assets, 3.97% of the 4.66%. So the vast majority of it was contributed by the loan yield. And then 55 basis points contributed from securities and 11 contributed from cash. And so if you add up all these contributions, they add up to the total yield on earning assets. So where that's really helpful is comparing it over time. So for example, we can see in the first quarter, let's look at securities. In the first quarter, the average yield on securities went from 254 up almost 40 basis points to 2.93. And securities contributed 55 basis points last quarter and 65 basis points to the total margin this quarter. So we saw an improvement not only in the yield, but in what percentage of our margin is being contributed from securities as a whole. And so it's just kind of a more dynamic way of thinking about in your ALCO committees with your board, what's driving our margin and what's driving our margin changes. And this over here obviously just shows the change in yield and cost and the change in margin contribution over time. So if you add up all these changes in margin contribution, you will end up with the total change in margin, right, over that period. And that's what we visualized up here on the top on this chart, which is a great waterfall chart showing you this was your margin, their margin, in the fourth quarter of last year. And cash and equivalents contributed to a slight decrease in margin, but my deposits contributed to an 18% increase, or sorry, an 18 basis point increase in margin. That would either be because of one of two things, right? Because of a change in rate, a positive change in rate, or a positive change in volume on the deposit side. So if I head down here, I can see that my rate on most of my deposits actually decrease. So when you see a decrease in your cost of deposits, it contributes usually to an increase in the margin over time. So it's just a way of thinking about how each of our different earning assets and interest-bearing liabilities contributes to our margin at a discrete period and over time. Sean?
Steve, just a question came in here. What are the most measured cash on hand liquidity metrics based on assets or liability as you currently report? So I think we probably would have to go to our liquidity profile tab if you want to jump
Sure. I'll go ahead and head over to liquidity profile. And
So actually, I think at the top one of the charts was actually on hand liquidity.
Oh,
so
on hand liquidity to total liabilities. And that one is some of these liquidity ratios, as we know, some of them are very standard. Some of them are a little bit more esoteric. So on hand liquidity to total liabilities, if I click on that, it's an interesting little formula on there. And then we also have a definition of it: net liquid assets to total liabilities, measuring the bank's ability to meet liquidity needs from on hand liquidity. Per OCC guidance, a definition of net liquid assets does not include cash and non-interest-bearing deposits. So some different ways and some different definitions of these different liquidity ratios. You can always get those definitions by clicking on each individual line item. Hopefully that helps answer the question. And again, these are summary ratios up here. If you want to dig into the details, you can expand on the asset side or on the funding side, and you'll see each line item, and we show kind of how we calculate each one of those. Like total liquid assets is A plus B plus E, et cetera, et cetera. So you can kind of audit exactly how we're coming up with these metrics and how we're calculating the summary ratios up top here.
Yeah, and so there's a follow-up. He followed the calculation, but he was suggesting we measure it to total assets and not liabilities. So
okay,
that's something we can look at.
Sure.
Yep. Thank you for the questions and the suggestion.
All right. Well, let's let's head back to the presentation.
Or in addition, yes. All right, let me grab that back. All right. You kind of just touched on this again,
Yep,
Steve, but just want to talk about the
yep.
interactive dictionary and the idea here.
So for each line item on each of our interactive pages, they will be clickable, and it'll have a little blue icon that pops up there, and you can click on the formula, and it'll again be able to audit back to the call report exactly what line items and how the formula is, how the metric is calculated. There are notes sometimes if there's something relevant. There's not always a kind of a full definition, and notes depends on each item. And next slide. Yes, we also have right up top in the kind of our navigation bar at the top of QwickAnalytics, no matter where you are on the platform, you can always just click on data dictionary. So you don't have to go, if you want to see how we calculate a certain metric, you don't have to go through all of our financial pages to find that metric and then click on it. You can just head to the data dictionary page and start typing in any field ID, or so any line item or field ID in our database, and it will it'll give you that same information. It'll show you how we calculate it from the call report and any other information. If you kind of want to go do a reverse search, so to speak, and say, hey, all right, this uses RIAD 4231. I don't want to go to the call report and see what that is. What is RIAD 4231 on the call report? Sadly, I know these things. It's taken up space in my brain. You guys shouldn't have to do that. So you can click on the call report field list and just type in 4231, and it'll let you know, hey, this field ID is is on schedule RI, and it is interest income on loans or what have you. So you can kind of go either way there, but we wanted to again make it a lot easier for you to double check our work or see how we're calculating things and where it's coming from on the call report. So you can, on our tool, the idea is you'll never have to go download, look at another call report, go to the FDIC's website to double check anything. If you want to see the raw call report values directly on QwickAnalytics, we have a tab for that as well. So you can go and search through all of the schedules on the call report and all the line items and what their values were over time. So yeah, you should never need to go outside of our system to see any of that data. All right, what's next? Yes.
The added tool.
Yes, I wanted to talk. We've done this a bunch of times in the past, but we're getting more uptake and more interest and usage out of the Excel add-in. So kind of wanted to just briefly give people a summary of how that works. It's a small piece of software that you can download off of our website that integrates directly into Excel. So the little screenshot right here is just that ribbon, right? In the newer versions of Excel, there's that kind of ribbon up top, and there'll be a new tab called QwickAnalytics, and you can log in just as you would log into our website. You would use the same login credentials, and then you can access all of the data that we have in QwickAnalytics pretty much directly into Excel without having to go to our website. So if you have certain models or you have certain templates or board reports that you have in Excel that you like that formatting, and maybe they link directly to PowerPoints that you use for the board or for other reporting, and you just kind of want to have our data flow or connect directly to it, you can open up your existing Excel files and open up a new tab and pull all of our data directly into that tab. And then with a click of a button each quarter, it'll relink to our database, update it quarterly if you want to. You can change durations, add line items, do pretty much anything you want to directly in your own Excel environment, and link it to any other work that you're doing. So we call the great equalizer for customization. As many different visualizations and tools and that's the Swiss Army knife of QwickAnalytics website has become. We can never visualize or get a feel for absolutely everything that our customers might want to do with it. So this allows you to take our data and make it look the best way for you. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide here. I think I'll do it just right here in the presentation for now, Sean, if that's okay.
Yeah.
A couple different ways you can, if you want to pull up your own peer group, just right in, if you have a custom peer group in QwickAnalytics and you want to pull some data from your custom peer group into Excel, you can do that as well. So you click on the research screens button and you get a pop-up which allows you to choose individual banks or to build a new peer group right here in Excel, or access an existing peer group QCVI peer group, or even UBPR peer group right in Excel. Once you choose a peer group, then you choose all the fields that you want to add. You can do it at the bank level. If you're interested in holding company level, consolidated holding company level from the FRY9Cs, you can search for institutions or build peer groups at the holding company level as well, and pull in consolidated financials just like you can individual bank financials. So if you go to the next screen, this will be a good reference. These pages from this presentation will be a good reference guide for any of you who want to get a little bit more involved in using the Excel add-in. You can, this shows you how you would search for a peer group or a bunch of banks to add to the Excel data using standard, just, give me a state, give me a county, give me assets between X and Y, right? But if you want to dig a little deeper and you want to do some compound searches, you say, I'm not just thinking about a standard, community bank peer group here. We're thinking about getting more into, C&I loans or more into multifamily. So I want to see all the community banks that are right around my size that have a similar net interest margin to me, but have a higher percentage of multifamily loans that I have, and look at their performance. Maybe I see a correlation between increased multifamily composition in my market and better margins or higher returns. You can build these custom filters to kind of hone in on exactly what research group you want, and then pull all the metrics that you want to look at their performance over time. So just like an example of how you might use it in a more advanced way. On the next slide, yeah, so this is what would come out, right? If I pulled up all those community banks in, I think these were California banks between 200 and 400 million. Once you click OK, it gives you that list of the banks, and then you can choose any fields you want. I think I just chose, reserves and core operating earnings and margin, a handful of metrics, and it instantaneously connects to our database and pulls all that data for you. You can change dates, you can change durations, you can change anything you want, and then just click refresh, and the whole table refreshes on the fly. Next slide. So that was a way to just kind of, pull a handful of financial metrics from a long list of community banks or peers. What if you just wanted to pull a balance sheet or an income statement or a deposit composition for an individual bank, for your bank, or for a specific peer of yours? That's where we would use what we call our formatted templates in Excel, where you search for a bank, and then you can choose a custom or an existing template like balance sheet, income statement, efficiency, yields and costs, asset quality, and choose the periods that you want, and go ahead to the next slide. And what you'll get, oh, sorry. Yeah, no, you can go forward. Yeah, you can use that. What you get is, instead of a bunch of banks listed and a handful of metrics, you get an income statement, right, from top to bottom, like you have on the screenshot on the left there. Interest income, interest expense, just like you would see it in a typical call report or financial statement. And you choose the periods that you want. If you want to see the last 6 quarters in columns or the last 6 years, you can pull that up. And so you can have a tab which is your income statement. And if you'd like to compare your income statement with one or two peers over a particular period of time, you can have a different bank in each column, and you can kind of on the same page there, side by side, compare your income statement or your efficiency metrics with a peers. This sounds to some of our more regular users, kind of sounds like the Peer Watch report, right? Where we have all these kind of pre-designed templates like income and earnings and asset quality and balance sheet, and each bank is its own column. It is sort of like that, but in our Peer Watch report, there's no flexibility, right? All you choose is a time period and a peer group, and that's it. Doing this type of analysis in Excel allows you ultimate flexibility. You can choose multiple time periods. You can mix and match what metrics you want. If you want 5 balance sheet, 5 income statement, you're not stuck with whatever the kind of pre-built PDF tool that we used to have on there. So just, again, less formatted, but much more flexibility in how you pull data and exactly what you pull. And I think, yeah, so that was kind of an update to how people are using the Excel add-in. Something I wanted to point out and spend just a minute on. So for our users that are using our interactive credit stress test, I'm gonna do, Sean, I'm turning over a new leaf. I'm gonna be succinct here. for those of you who don't know what our interactive credit stress test is, it's a portfolio-based credit stress test that answers a bunch of what-if questions. If your loan portfolio over the next couple of years, if it were to perform like your peers did during the Great Recession, what would be the impact, pro forma impact on your P&L and your capital? So it's a totally automated stress test that does project your earnings and capitals going out a couple years into the future under varying degrees of stress. Stress as defined by some of your peers' worst experiences, stress as defined by your experience during 2009 to 2011, for example, and also a reverse stress test, which is a break the bank type test. So that's my quickest summary ever of our credit stress test. But what I wanted to kind of go into for just a minute was an additional option that we've added in there to customize, which I think could be really helpful and give you a new way to utilize or think about the stress test. So go to the next slide. Oh, actually, that's just a summary of it, which I already did. So go to the next slide. Okay, so the way our second test worked, which was assuming that you're going to perform going forward like you have in the past, right? Like during the last credit cycle. And the way it worked was we just calculated what your average losses were for each segment of a loan portfolio during the last credit cycle. And you could choose what periods you wanted to use, but it was just pretty much an average of your performance over those years. There was no flexibility in doing that, but now there is. Now you can override these custom these loss calculations and choose any values that you want to use, as opposed to just using the ones that are kind of predetermined in there. Let me go ahead and share my screen for a second so I can kind of walk through that for just a minute.
And while you're doing that, I was just going to add, again, I think here at nearly the midpoint of the year, this is a perfect time to do some stress testing, particularly our portfolio test. As Steve said, right, we've really already done the work for you. It's already kind of teed up for you. You can make modifications to what our base case assumptions are. But this time of the year, at the end of the year, this is a tool that's already part of your QwickAnalytics subscription. We can walk through your data with you, but it does really give you and your board of directors a nice sense of what your capital cushion is. Again, you don't have to do any of the data aggregation. And as Steve said, or if you get through the analysis and it's still not punitive enough, right? We've added that flexibility for you to kind of put in your own loss rates, net charge-off rates, to again really kind of set up the guardrails, and show your board, your regulators, what type of capital cushion the bank really has. So it's a good, like I said, it's a really good tool that doesn't require much from you. You can certainly fine tune it, but we've already kind of run some base case assumptions.
Yeah, can you see my screen now, Sean?
We can, yes.
Excellent. So the way the tool has worked is in the second test where we're estimating what your performance might be like in the future if your loan portfolio were to experience losses going forward like it did during the Great Recession, during, let's say, 2009 through 2011. What we found was for a lot, this test wasn't really helpful for a lot of our customers because unlike some of the big banks that really got hammered during 2009, 10, 11, a bunch of parts of the country, a lot of community banks just didn't experience anywhere near those levels of losses. And so even if you said, well, if we were to have losses like we did during the worst 3 years on record, you might still not really suffer very much losses. And so we wanted to give you a way to either make it more punitive or just say, hey, if we experienced 1% net charge-offs on each segment of our loan portfolio across the board for the next couple of years, I mean, I can do easy math, but I'd like to see a little bit more detail. What would that look like for our P&L, and what would that look like for capital ratio? So I can come in here now and say, and I'm just going to go ahead and give me just a second, bear with me as I do this. I'm just overriding what the bank's actual losses were during 2009, 10, 11, and just saying 1% losses across the board in an adverse scenario, and 2% losses across the board in a severely adverse or worst case type scenario. And And for loan loss reserve, let's say 1.5%, or no, gain loss, we'll just leave these at 0. And let's say a 1.5% reserve during an adverse and a 2% reserve in a severely adverse. So I did all these. One thing you'll notice about our tool is it's interactive and it recalculates on the fly. So as I'm typing in these more adverse loss rates, historical loss rates, the entire tool is recalculating instantaneously on the fly. So I can toggle right back to the results and immediately see how that recalculates. So let me go into the detail here. So this is a bank loss experience. This is my loan portfolio. I've got a $4.9 billion loan portfolio. In my adverse scenario, I'm now suffering 1% net charge-offs per year in each segment. And in the worst case, 2% across the board. So for a total net charge-offs of 48 million, which is exactly 1%, or 97 million annually, which is 2%. Now, how does that translate to the income statement or the earnings impact? That's the next step, right? Once we've calculated actual dollars of net charge-offs you might see under these loss rates, we can use it to recalculate or kind of rebuild our income statement. We have, now we have a provision that has to take into account the additional losses, because you have to provide not only for the losses that you're going to see so that your reserve doesn't drop, but also provide for any addition in the reserve that you might have to add to the reserve as things get worse, right? That's kind of a double whammy of on the income statement in an adverse credit environment. Is your provisions are increasing because your losses are increasing, but at the same time, you've got your regulators breathing down your neck, forcing you to, pressuring you to increase your reserve. And so both of those things have an impact on the loan loss provision. And that provision really starts to add up over time. And you can see as a result, earnings in a baseline scenario, very positive; in an adverse scenario, kind of flatlined; and in a severely adverse scenario, significantly negative earnings in year 1 and year 2, with a 1 or 2 year kind of, 1 or 2% across the board loss rate. And then finally, how does it impact my capital? Well, here's my current capital levels and ratios. Now I'm factoring in some earnings, or some not much earnings, or some significant net losses. And then these are the pro forma capital ratios in all those healthy, unhealthy, and worst case scenarios kind of side by side. So again, the only thing that's new here for those of you who've already been using our tool is the ability to customize the test 2, where we're looking at the bank's loss experience, assuming you're going to perform like you did in the past, where you can really just handpick exactly what stress loss rate you want to use for each segment of your portfolio, and kind of zoom in on that and create something more punitive or more customized that'll help in doing some what if analysis with the board and strategic planning. Or if your examiner comes in and says, hey, I know you guys are well capitalized, I know you guys didn't see much losses during the last downturn, but what if? And this is your answer to the what if. And you can do it on the fly in about 5 minutes. John?
Great. Let's see. A couple of questions came in, Steve. The first one is actually just a nice comment. Thank you. The stress testing module is a helpful tool. We are a $3 billion bank and use this with our other stress testing, and has been well received by our regulators. We've used it for several years now. So thank you very much for sharing that with our group today. Is the charge-off the only scenario we can apply? Is the second question.
So I assume we're talking about the stress test here. Yeah, the way this stress test is designed, it's built upon the premise is, if you were to experience net charge-offs going forward over 2 years, like you experienced or like your peers experienced to the same levels as you did or your peers did in the past, what would be the pro forma impact? So it's not designed to be kind of a multi-step like PD, LGD type thing where you say, right, well, these are my increased non-performing loans. At what level at what rate do we think they're going to translate into losses, and then actual charge-offs? But obviously charge-offs are where the rubber meets the road. That's where it's going to hit the actual balance sheet and the income statement, other than just your increasing reserve for potential losses. So there isn't flexibility in what metric you use to kind of drive it, other than net charge-offs. But we do have some other tools, and we're building even more other tools that we'll share with soon, that are going to allow a lot more flexibility and do something I think like you might be hinting towards.
Yeah, and I will say on a loan level basis, our IntelliCredit team, can do loan level stress testing, and they do their allow for I think utilizing tools just beyond net charge-offs as well. So as part of that analysis. All right. Next up, and we're getting close here on time, but Steve, it's the branch mapping. If you want to talk a little
Yeah,
bit.
I didn't want to dig too deep. We talked about this a few months ago when we did another kind of update webinar, but just wanted to remind people we have a lot more functionality now when it comes to mapping branches for your bank and your competitors. We have what's called a universal branch map. Just on the login page on the left-hand side, you can click on the universal branch map, and you can add banks and credit unions into it, and you can choose a market, a city, a state, a zip code, and see a list of all the banks that have branches and map either all those banks' branches or handpick specific peers that you want to map. If you want to see your footprint next to 2 or 3 other community banks' footprints, or if you want to see where there's holes in a national or regional bank's footprint in your market. It's a very, hopefully intuitive tool that'll allow you to do that in just a couple clicks. And on the next slide, this is a way to kind of get into that without having to build it from scratch. If you go to a bank's interactive financial homepage, like your bank or one of your peers, if you see the map on that front page, there's a button called competitors. It's been there for a little while now, but it's kind of hard to see. If you click on that, then it will show you a list of all of the other banks that have any branches in the markets that this bank or your bank has branches. And then you can handpick the individual bank you'd like to add and click continue. And right on your branch map there, it'll add those other branches for those other institutions and color code the which institution it is, so you can visually see on the map if there's multiple peers. You can also click on the individual branches of your peers. It'll let you know the address of the branch, whose branch it is, the deposits at that branch as of the June 30th of the most recent year, and let you know when that branch opened, and if it was acquired by someone else, if they didn't open it de novo, when it was acquired by that institution. So some good branch level data that we're integrating throughout the tool as well. So for those of you who didn't know.
Perfect. So that gets us to the end. So thank you all for joining us today. Just a few reminders. Again, we will send out a link to the recording and a copy of the slides today in an email next week. For all the past webinars and videos we've done, certainly look on our YouTube channel. You can see a link at the bottom of this page, but you can see all of our historical presentations, not only about today's webinar, but other ones we've done across the board. Certainly, as we touched on, again, we think data and getting your arms around your own data is critical. Our IntelliCredit division continues to make inroads and enhancements to that tool. This is an area where we do utilize the bank's data and build dashboards and reporting for you, so you can mine your loan portfolio in a number of different ways. So if we are offering a 3-month free trial. Part of the reason is we want to make sure we get your data in, and so you can see it and legitimately evaluate whether it can be helpful to you or not. So certainly encourage you to reach out to our IntelliCredit team and learn more about it. Upcoming webinars for Steve and myself. We've got a liquidity presentation coming in July that I'll be hosting, and then Steve and I'll be back on July 24th. Whoops, excuse me, not on that one. It will be our infusion team, how marketing fuels your bank's growth plan. So a couple of webinars. If you register, you'll receive a copy of the slides and a link to the recording. So always certainly encourage you to register for our webinars. And then Steve and I'll be back in August for our next CECL coffee talk. So you can register for that as well. And at that point, we'll obviously have second quarter call report information available as well. So Steve, any final thoughts or comments before we let everybody
No, I was going to say, for those of you who are upset that I didn't talk about CECL at all today, don't worry, we'll be back to it in August. But it's always good to take a kind of zoom out, step away from CECL for a little while, and see everything else that we've got going on that we're excited about and building on the platform.
But I think it's worth noting, I know, again, since some of our users are not are not subscribers, we didn't talk about Cecil today, but within a QwickAnalytics subscription, there is a Cecil solution. So
Yeah.
I do want to point that out. But as Steve said, since we do have these coffee talks on a regular basis, for this particular presentation today, we did not direct any of the conversation there, but certainly we have that as part of the QwickAnalytics solution.
Yeah, I mean, we have a few hundred community banks that are using our Cecil solver solution as their Cecil solution. So if you've got one, if you're not a current user, if you've got another Cecil solution that with a third party that that you'd like to look at alternatives, we're happy to walk you through how our tool would work and how it can help.
So again, I don't see any additional questions. I want to thank everyone for their time today. Really appreciate you making the time to join us. We hope the presentation was helpful. Look for an email next week with a link and a copy of the slides. We hope you have a great weekend and have a great 4th of July. Be safe, and we will see you on the next presentation. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, everybody.